What's up, world? This is Hobson McCain,
My name is Mark Ray Redmond.
and we are bringing you another episode of This is America. Now, today is kind of a mix of economic and social, but we're going to call it economic just because of the monetary benefit that the government is making on this particular issue.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're talking about is the monetization of the reunification of immigrant families. That was a mouthful, but it's important, and it's important to know, and it's really
We'll make, we'll
disturbing.
make it
And
simple.
you said what?
I said we have to make it simple. In layman's terms, they're charging people to reunite their families.
Yeah,
If a mother wants to get reunited with her child, she has to pay for a DNA test.
yeah. So a U.S. judge has actually just ordered that the Trump administration has to pay the cost of reuniting immigrant families at the border. But this just recently happened. Now there has been at least one instance where a woman got charged up to $1,900 for DNA testing and reunification of her family. Seeing her daughter again. But on average, families are getting charged $700 to $800 for DNA tests to prove that they're the parents of these children. Now, as I was informed right before the show by Mark, these people are coming across the border with documentation, proving that they are parents to these
Like
kids.
they have the kids' birth certificates. Like they have the same type of documentation that we have. I'm assuming
Yeah, well, yeah. It's not an American birth
they're born
certificate,
to
but
it,
yeah,
right?
there's some form of documentation when a child is born in other countries. So they come over with this documentation, and then it is removed from them when they're detained, and then the U.S. government is coming back and saying, now you have to pay $700 $800 to get a DNA test to prove that you're this person's parent, that you're their mom, you're their dad. And I want to
Trying.
start off by saying it is important to. Well, I'll start off by saying this: the parents shouldn't have been separated from their children to begin with. So punishing them for an a close to evil, it's pretty much an evil policy. To separate
There's
little,
no other way to put it,
yeah,
bro.
to
Like
separate, literally zero, month old kids to 14, 15, 16-year-old kids. These are infants, toddlers, 8 year
this
olds,
is
9 year olds.
ridiculous.
Like, these
It's
kids don't know
ridiculous, bro.
what's going on. This their first experience of being in the United States is being taken from their
They're in
mom or dad.
courtrooms by themselves. It's a lot. It's a lot going on, bro.
Um and and then to charge the families for a DNA test when obviously the kid knows who their mom is, the mom knows who their kid is. It's really grimy, to be honest. But I, I'll say that once you separate the parents, with the history that America has of placing immigrant children with, you know, child traffickers, sex traffickers, even like you know, illegal work traffickers. They work the little immigrant kids for no pay and just have them in their house or whatever. With that history, it is important to have some form of verification that these are the parents of the child.
Right.
Now,
I personally didn't know before the show that Supreme Court justice or like the Supreme Court said that we have to pay for them. We have to pay for the DNA test now.
oh no, it wasn't the Supreme Court. It was just a federal judge. So
The
basically,
federal judge
yeah, there's different.
said that we should.
Yeah, so there's different levels to the courts. There's state courts,
I know.
county courts.
Explain
Different.
it.
There's U.S. courts, but a federal court can be state based. So like, there's a federal judge in Hawaii. There's a federal judge in Georgia, and so they can make different rulings that stop certain presidential orders until they're heard by the Supreme Court, right? So the federal judge that ordered that the Trump administration pay the cost of these DNA tests and the reunification, that was more. It's more of a proposition. It's more of saying, yeah, like
We
we
should
need to
do
talk
that.
about this, and you need to stop charging them now and like pay for it until we figure out what we're gonna do going forward.
But as of today, you would say they're still being charged the same $700, $800 to get the DNA test.
Yeah,
That's not okay. That's wrong. Like you said before, they shouldn't have been separated from their children to begin with. So to separate them from their children, take their documentation from them, and then turn around and say, okay, we're going to give you your kids back, but we need your documentation that you don't have because we took it. We don't know where it is. So you need to take a DNA test to prove that this is your kid. But we're not going to pay for the DNA test. You need to pay for it. Even though you came here illegally, that was part of the reason why we took your kids from you. So we know you don't have too much, but we still need that $700, $800. Now that puts them in a bind, they don't know what to do. So now, what do? They take out loans to get their kids back.
yeah,
Now they're basically in debt to the state to get their kids back that we took from them. That to me is wrong. Like you said, it's grimy. It's something that we shouldn't be doing.
yeah. And just like you said, these are refugees. A lot of these people are applying for asylum coming to America. So they're not coming here with money. They're not coming here with, you know, $3,000 that they can just like we could split half of this to get our child back and then get deported back to Mexico or Honduras or Guatemala, wherever they're coming from, and then have enough money to make it all the way back home. Like, this is $800 is it might not be a lot to some of you guys, but it's a lot to them. And and even there was an instance where a relative of a child who had got separated from her parents she'd been living in the United States legally, and she applied to have the child, under her care. The U.S. government charged her $1,900 to fly not only the child, but an escort. They charged the woman with the plane ticket for the escort and the child and the DNA test to make sure that they're related. Like charge that woman with all of it. All she wants is for her little niece, nephew, cousin, whatever the relationship was, to not have to live under an aluminum foil blanket for an indefinite amount of time. So
However long they need.
yeah,
however long it takes them to care.
So and the Trump administration was supposed to have all children 0 to 5 reunify with their parents by July 5th. It's July 16th. July 17th, and they haven't reached the quota of even the 0 to 5 year olds. They haven't reunited all of them. Like a 2 month old baby.
I can guess why.
Yeah, I mean, it's either because
don't have $700 to take a DNA test, and they don't have the paperwork. So, everybody that's not going to just take out a loan. Everybody doesn't move like that. People don't just decide, oh, well, I don't have $800, so I'm going to just get $800 from you and pay you back. That's not how that works for everyone.
And another thing is that when they detain the parents, the children are shipped off to different facilities. So they have to then find the parent, or the parent has to find the child before they can reunify them, right? So that takes time in itself. So the plan of separating children at the border, it never came with a plan to reunify them, or else there would have been better logistics that would have facilitated this process better. So, the whole process is messed up.
These problems, if you care, if you care from the beginning, I don't understand how we get to this point.
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that the Trump administration didn't care about the well-being of the immigrant families, and people who support that policy don't care about the immigrant. You'll hear people say, "Well, if you didn't want to get separated, don't come here illegally."
Bro.
Well, I mean, okay, but
Donald Trump's didn't his family come here illegally?
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
We don't even need
Or
to make that argument. Though. I mean, because like everybody knows at this point that everybody who's here is either a willing immigrant. Unless you're a Native American, then you're either a willing immigrant or you were brought here forcibly by.
act like to say that you don't care about other human beings with an excuse as flimsy as they broke the rules crossing that line when they shouldn't have. Now they don't deserve. Now this little 0-year-old don't deserve to be with her mom.
Yeah, especially in cases where they're seeking asylum, it's not illegal to come to America seeking asylum, and a lot of these immigrants were coming to seek asylum, and were separated regardless until they could prove that they were seeking asylum. Now, when they prove it, then they have to go through the process of finding which government facility their child's being held at, whether it be across the country, across the state, with little to no resources, little to no help from the U.S. government. And then when they get there, they have to pay $700, $800 for a DNA test to prove that their kid, who they know is their kid who knows that's my mom or dad. Like if I'm being held, if I was 4 and I was being held by anybody that wasn't my parents, and my parents came, I would say, Mom and Dad, thank you for coming.
It's lit.
Like,
Let's go.
yeah, it's like, maybe like a 2-month-old probably can't identify their mother because they can't speak yet. So a DNA test is
The DNA tests aren't like they're not far fetched to understand why we need them. Like,
Yeah,
I
no.
understand you don't know all of the immigrants. Like they might not have their documentation because you took it from them, so you can't tell whose is who. It's hard to get people their paperwork back. I understand that might not be as easy as it sounds. Just give them their paperwork back. It might not work that way. I understand that. DNA tests might be necessary for those that are 0 to 5 years old because everybody in that age group cannot identify their parents. But for us to charge the parents for the DNA test, to me, is sick.
Yeah, I mean
That's the only way to describe it.
that's just monetizing the misfortune that you put upon a group of people. That's like having a slave pay for their freedom, something that they should have had to begin with. But because you took it from them, now they have to pay you to get it rectified. We obviously have a history of that kind of stuff happening in America.
It sounds like a human rights violation to me.
But nobody wants to call it what it is.
If this was happening to somebody in another country, then we would be saying, yo, you can't be separating them from their families. Look at how they have these kids sleeping with other kids while their parents are having to get prosecuted. They're getting, they're not getting what they need to. They're not getting I'm trying to think what I was trying to say. I messed up.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you think about it, it's like it's not the same exact circumstance, but when a American citizen goes to a foreign country and gets abducted by like a cartel or something like that, and the cartel hits up the American government and is like, pay us this amount of money so that you can get your boy back. The American government says, oh no, we don't negotiate with terrorists, because the American government has that power to say, oh, I mean, like, we don't want you to kill this person or do anything bad to this person, but we're not going to pay you to release him because he should have been released already, right? This has happened many a times. And, sometimes we have gone and gotten them back. Sometimes we haven't. Sometimes we worked out a deal. Sometimes we hadn't. But regardless, if you flip that scenario and somebody is coming into a country and the country then separates them from their family and says, oh, we're going to pay, or you have to pay us if you want to be reunified. They don't have the power to say, oh no, we don't negotiate with terrorists, because then they're just not going to get their kid back. And
this is what makes it sick. It's different, like you said before. If it's a country, the country has the money that the terrorists are asking for. That's the whole reason the terrorists are asking for the money. They know you have it. We know that the majority of people that are coming here illegally, I'm assuming, do not have the funds to just drop $700 to $800 to get their kids back, especially if they've already been paying legal fees for other processes to get to the point that they need to be at to try to get their children back. So I just don't understand where we think that this endless fountain of money is for them. if they're coming here as refugees to begin with.
And what's really messed up is that we haven't even talked about the fact that the U.S. government has had 4 and 5 year olds representing themselves in court, trying to defend themselves from an immigration charge. You know, they
It doesn't make any sense.
yeah they
Legally, they don't have. I'm trying to think of the term. They can't make an autonomous decision for themselves. They can't be properly informed on how to make the right decision for themselves because they are too young to be in court. Legally, they can't give consent to anything at all. Why are they sitting in court? What sense does that make?
because the United States government has already taken their mom and dad away and put them in jail somewhere. So, but
Logic, it doesn't make sense.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It
Not
doesn't
at
make
all.
sense.
So this is a really a disgusting violation of everything that we're supposed to hold dear in America. Liberty. The innocent till proven guilty justice system. Like all of that stuff is kind of being tainted because America wants to make a few cheap bucks, and like America doesn't need $800 from every immigrant that comes across the border. That's not going to be a large amount of money. But it's really crazy because they actually hired a private contractor to run the DNA test. So the private contractor is making a majority of the money. So I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's that they actually haven't released the name, which could be a federal crime. But we won't talk about that. But I'm sure it's somebody's friend, somebody's buddy who runs DNA tests, and they're making a nice little penny off these immigrants who probably barely speak English, don't know what's going on, but they just want their child back. So they're gonna scrounge up $700, $800, whether that be the last $700, $800 they have, or even if they have, $5,000. That's about a fifth of their money, bro. Like that's a fifth of their money.
I don't have it, bro. I don't have the money to just be blowing like that.
Yeah. I mean, even the average American citizen doesn't they can't just pay $800 just willy nilly, just out the blue.
Millennial if he got $800 he could drive. Ask a millennial, anybody under 25 years old, they got $800 right now just to drop. Like, and that's just this $800 for the kid. Like, that's not talking about any other legal fees.
No legal fees, no transportation back to wherever you Guatemala or Honduras, wherever you're coming from. There's no payment for transportation. They get you back across the border and then let you go.
Take deuce, bro.
So
you up out of here.
This is obviously a problem that needs to be fixed. Hopefully, it's in the process of being fixed because this judge has just ordered that the U.S. pay for the cost. But there's already been opposition talk about, that's putting too much burden on the U.S. government. But it's not putting a burden on the immigrants who are coming here seeking asylum from...
Just because they broke the law does not remove their human rights. Like, yes, you can call them criminals, I guess, because they broke the law.
No, they actually just started calling them criminals with Donald Trump's zero tolerance policy. So, before they'd be charged in civil court.
Like, me personally, I'm not agreeing with them being called criminals because I understand why they're coming here. I understand the logic behind it. Like, I'm not saying that it's criminal logic for them to be trying to come here for a better life. No, but the law is the law. Yada yada. They did come here illegally, so there should be something that happens. But to remove them from their children, and then this whole scenario would not happen if you just had decency and cared about other human beings.
Yeah, sympathy.
We wouldn't be in this situation.
But that's something that our government has lacked when it comes to foreign citizens, foreign powers, foreign anything, for a little bit, a good amount of time now. So. With that, we're letting you know what's going on. You can call your congressman, call your representative in your state, tell them that you don't agree with this, and
See what
You know
happens.
that's just that's a little thing that you could do. There's rallies, there's protests. So
Petition.
get
Do
involved.
something.
The people who actually do care have to show that they care, so that the people in Washington have no choice but to care, because that's how Washington works. They're all making decisions based on the fact they want to get reelected at the next election. Especially with this election coming up in November, people are trying to adhere to their constituents' wishes. So make it known that your representative has a lot of people that don't support, first of all, the separation of children. Second of all, people having to pay to get reunified with the children that the government separated from them. That's how you get involved in politics. It's not really all about president and vice president. That's a big thing that happens every 4 years. But the local elections and the things that seem minuscule, those are the things that go a long way. Those are the things that really affect your day to day life. So
Local politics are important. I'm
yeah,
gonna run for mayor. Vote for me.
yeah. So you gotta get involved. So anyway, we're gonna close this segment out. Thank y'all for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends.
Share with everybody.
Yeah, share with the people who aren't your friends. Just do what you can. So with that, we're gonna be tuning out. So thank you guys for tuning out.